and we'll get started. What is up, everybody? Brian Mendler back in your life on another edition of the podcast. And today I am super excited to be joined by a teacher from New York City, Stephanie Edmonds, joining me. How you doing? It's good to see you. Class disruption.
Yes, class disruption. I am doing good. Yes, I was like ready to bring the energy. Okay, let's go.
You always bring the energy. So look, first I want to start off just publicly apologizing to you. I hit you up back in, I think it was like April to come on, and I just didn't get back to you until recently, but I'm actually glad because I've been watching what you've been doing and I'm seeing how just fired up you are about schools not being open. And I obviously feel the same way. And I just wanted to talk to another teacher who feels this way. So take me back a little bit, like to when this all started, and when did you really get so focused on believing that schools should be open?
Oh man. So, I mean, publicly, really towards the end of the summer, but I had definitely been feeling it for a while. Like I was super surprised when we didn't go back at the end of the year. I was really like, I thought after spring break, we'd be headed back in, but I was like, okay, they're playing a little safe, but like definitely by fall. And then I put out a video at the end of August and I was like, the arguments being made by teachers are outlandish and they don't even make sense. And on the one hand, they're saying like, we're essential, we're essential, we're essential. And yet we're not acting essential. I just responded to a tweet this morning that was like, now more than ever shows how essential teachers are. And I'm like, does it really though? Or does it show how essential families are?
Yeah, I think I think it's important to not throw a blanket over any part of this, right?
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there are some on both sides, and I've definitely worked with some districts where teachers are literally right now in person and they're teaching on the computer at the same time, which is unbelievably challenging. So I think you have really right now what's going on is you have two, major different ends of the spectrum.
Yes, 100%. And I was doing that a little bit too. Like I was teaching in person and I had some kids who were coming into the building. I had some kids at home. And so I would be in the room and I would have a few in there with me and I'd be teaching there. And so I think, is it hard? Yeah. But once you find your groove, you figure it out. I've gotten in trouble for saying figure it out, but that's what we do. Like, I think that just the tendency to always go to the extreme and say, people don't understand, they don't respect us, this and that. I just don't understand where that rhetoric comes from. So I, by no means, am trying to like throw a blanket. I know sometimes it seems like that. And I give all the credit to, and most school districts, I think it's like 60% of school districts, somewhere around there, are back, mostly full in session. Yeah. So shout out to all those teachers out there.
Yeah. And look, I know what you mean. And I see it with my son's teacher, who I love, by the way. Let me be clear about that. I love the guy. I think he's great. He's tremendous. But his job's not harder this year. There's no chance his job's hard. I'm watching what he's doing. He's got half the class, right? So he teaches Monday, Thursday to half the class. He's got the other class Tuesday, Friday, and he does an hour and a half Zoom on Wednesday. So he's got half the class. You can't, like, it's a disservice to how hard teachers work in a normal year.
I think it's more frustrating
now, right?
Like as a teacher, it's more frustrating because you don't get that feeling, right, that you get in front of the kids. So there's like very little satisfaction. So I can see that. But in terms of like having to get up and get dressed and do all that work, back, there's no question that it is much easier to stand here or to sit on my couch and do what I do. And I interact with kids a much smaller amount of the day, at least as a class. Like I'm definitely reaching out individually, making my phone calls, and that can be tiresome. But again, I can easily make a cup of coffee. I can go grab a bathroom break anytime that I want, essentially. Like, it is much easier to work from home, though maybe more frustrating.
Interesting that you think that you say that, because I think a lot of teachers are not saying that. I think a lot of people are saying that it's harder. And I can see both sides, right? Like
Right.
I think it's harder in the sense because you don't have your stuff, you don't have your familiar environment, but it's easier in the sense that you can sleep in a little longer. You don't have to get
Yes.
all ready to go or drive to school or hop on
Yep.
the subway like you might have to do.
Exactly. So and two, I think a lot of teachers I've been hearing like, oh well, I have to like remake all my materials and redesign all that. And to me, that just sounds like you've been doing the same thing year after year, and now you're mad because you have to like throw it into a Google form instead of just like print out a paper, you
I
know?
agree with you though, by the way, because look, if you know your content, then what's the difference where you're teaching it, right? Like
And
if
that's
you know what you're teaching, if you're good, and I do it all the time, it's my job, right? My
right.
job is I travel around the country and I help teachers. Well, literally I'm in a different place every day. So it's not about where I am, it's about the quality that how well do I understand what I'm trying to teach. And when you have your content down pat, then especially now with how easy technology is to use, what's the difference really where you are?
That's I was just saying this to somebody because I've been hearing all this stuff like everybody's a first year teacher, and I'm like, bro, I don't feel like a first year teacher. Like it's different, but like I know my content, so I can like basically all my resources can go, excuse me, to figuring out this online thing, which I would say most teachers have been some sort of transition. I mean, every year I've been here, it's been increasingly more technology based, even in the
Yeah.
classroom. Everything I'm using this year, I've been using the last 2 years, from Flipgrid to like those video ones where you can answer the questions, all that stuff. Now it's just more of it.
Yeah. Well, if you look at like what we've done as a society, like this is something that would not have been able to be done just 5 years ago because we didn't have the technology. Technology didn't exist to be able to do this. So, right. So we wouldn't have been able to say, let's make this the answer to the pandemic. Let's make the answer closing schools. We would have said
Right.
there's no way to do that because we can't deliver the education. And now that we can, it makes it easier to do.
And I saw an article in, I think it was the New York Post, and it talked about how in 1918, the pandemic, they actually created those radiator heaters so they could get really, really hot and heat up a whole room while the windows were open. And I'm like, oh, that's why. Because like every winter, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why do they make it so damn hot in here? And we always have the windows cracked, like at least at the top. Sometimes if it gets like super hot, we're opening them up to like, and now this year, everybody's like, oh my goodness, it's so cold in these classrooms, da da da. And again, I'm like, okay, so like put on a jacket, like I get the kids up, get them moving
Right.
around,
Suck
like
it
keep the
up.
spirits up.
Right.
Like there's no bad weather, there's just bad clothing.
So what is it? Like what do you think it is that makes people take that side? Like why is it that people are, that because I'm with you. Like I'm with you. And look, I was saying this just last week on my show. I don't think you can I think, and I know you have a kid, right? So I have two kids school age and you have a kid school age. And I feel like if you have kids school age, you feel this the way we do. The only way you could not feel this way is if you don't have your own kids in school. That's kind of how I see it.
I mean, I meet plenty of people.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe
meet
I'm
them.
wrong.
I see plenty of people on Twitter that have kids and this
Yeah.
and that. I think it's what good people do. I always say I don't want to be a good person, because good people, they go about their lives and they take the path of least resistance. And I don't want to, speak down on that or hate on that, but good people let horrible things happen. And I don't want to be a good person. I want to be somebody who stands up and is loud and can be considered mean sometimes, or I don't know. People frame me as being lacking empathy, but I feel like if you know me in real life, like have the most empathy. Like I am there for you, by your side, willing to fight. But it comes across as being mean or brutish or whatever. But I see it as the good people syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but so where does that come from for you? Like, where does that inner fight come from? What tell me about yourself.
I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to place because, you know, I do have two sisters and we're all quite different. One of my sisters, you know, can't believe how outspoken I am at different things, but she's certainly strong and independent in her own way. So I definitely think that just having two like strong independent parents, especially like my mom has three girls, like my mom was always outspoken, always making sure that we had the same opportunities as everybody, as boys especially. I played ice hockey growing up, so like that was always like a big thing, like girl sports, boy sports, like I was almost always the only girl on the
Yeah.
team, so different things like that. And
Uh,
I just think also some of it's just natural. Like I was always kind of that kid that was like, all right, cool, like I'm gonna do it, and I see those are the rules, but like I'm just gonna do it my way anyways.
Right. Right. Or that's the rule, but it doesn't really apply to me. I mean, it
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
applies to
kind
me,
of
but
thing.
not totally apply. That's how I was too. I'm the same way. I have that. Like, well, I'm a rule follower as long as the rule makes sense, right? If it makes sense, like I stop at red lights, right? Why? Good rule. It's a good rule, right? That's a good rule. I'll follow it, right? Like I drive on the right-hand side of the road. Why? Because it makes sense, right?
What
It's a
about
good
those red lights at 1 a.m. in the morning?
right. Right. Well, right. Those potentially right. Correct. By the way, my daughter's playing ice hockey right now, which is
Oh, sweet.
yeah, it's awesome. There's now one other girl. So when it started, there was 14 kids. She was the only girl, 14 boys and 4 male coaches. And she was the
Okay.
only girl. And now there's one more girl. And
Okay.
she loves it though. She's right in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And I think that you should play with the boys as long as you can, you know, like at some point you totally have to switch over, especially hockey. It gets like super physical.
Right.
But then when you switch over to girls, like you just run things. So
Makes sense. Makes sense. And
yeah.
that's the part of it right now that she struggles with is the physical part because she can skate with them and she can really do the skills with them, but then they start bumping and it's not like she's 6, right? So they're not checking each other.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they're all going for the puck. And when they all
Yeah.
go for the puck,
Well,
both
I bet she'll go through a little growth spurt before them. So she'll, you know, she'll be at the top before
uh,
she has
I,
to switch over.
we'll see. We'll see. Let's hope. So how long have you been teaching and has it all been in the New York City area? Did you grow up in New York as well?
So yeah, I actually grew up just outside New York City in Stamford, Connecticut, and that is where I went out to the city for like grad school, and I was living out there. And then once I had my son, I moved back here to Stamford. So I commute in.
Oh,
I was
okay.
taking the train, but once I have to drop my son off now to preschool, now I drive. Well, now I'm at home.
How far is that
But
commute for you on a daily basis?
um, you know, it's not too bad without traffic. It takes me like maybe 35, 40 minutes. If there's traffic, it can take like an hour. So
So you go an hour each way potentially to and from work. So really the truth is from a outside perspective, working from home should actually be better for you. Yet you're still fighting to not be doing that, right?
100%. I save like so much time. I have so much more energy in the evenings to give my son that when I don't like, sometimes I from staring at the screen, I do get a little like this, but just in general, I typically have way more energy to devote to my son, to making dinner, to like doing all those things by not commuting 100%. So,
So
yeah.
what makes you fight that fight? Why are you so because for you, right? I mean, that's it makes me smile because selfishly, right? You would be like, let's let this go for a while. Why not, right?
Right.
But selflessly, you're saying I gotta be back. Why do you feel that way?
Because
What about
I
the
don't do what
kids?
I
Like,
do. I don't do what I do just to sustain myself, you know? Like
sure.
if I was doing that, I think I would have chosen a different profession. I do what I do because I truly believe in the power of education. I've been super passionate about it since I was young, going back to Stanford. You know, I was in 5th grade and we went through this whole redistricting debacle, and I saw the ways that race and socioeconomic status played into it. Because from my side of town, it was mostly poorer, mostly Black, Spanish, heavily Hispanic population. And then when we went up to the other side of town, I just saw like the way that they looked at us. you know, the way that the lines were different, like the way that we all got put into the lower groups and the kids from the north side, they were in the top groups. Like, how does that work? And they're like, oh, well, test scores. So the way that I see how the system works just based on people just being good people, right? It's they're following their incentives, a lot of times not even recognizing it, right? They're just doing what's best for them, what's always been done. And that's what I see playing out here right now is people are just kind of going with the flow. Oh, well, and so I never understood how people just stood to the side. Like, right now, I know, I see how important school is. And I was there. The kids that were there valued it so much,
Yep.
right? You could say, oh, well, they just go into the buildings and they sit and they look at the screens, but they're getting all the best parts of school. They're getting the structure. They're getting even more one-on-one support if they're coming into the building. And they're getting like that motivation, like we can still have fun, you know, those vibes, that school's like community.
Yep. Right.
So
Yeah. I mean, you look at the kids now that are seniors and you just shake your head because look at what they had to endure. They missed basically the last half of their junior year, which is all the cool stuff, right? It's the prom and then their whole senior year, which is, you know, every activity and every game and every event. And it's like, you know, and no wonder depression is up and no wonder suicide is through the roof, right? And we talk about mental illness mattering. Well, what does it not anymore? Like, when did it stop mattering? When did we all of a sudden as a community be like, who got whatever with the mental health of people anymore? Mental health is more important than physical health. When I'm physically injured, I work hard to rehabilitate myself, right? When I'm mentally ill, I'm on the couch, right? I'm sad. So for me, I'm more motivated when I'm physically ill than I am when I'm mentally ill.
yeah, and I would say for me, that's part of it too. Like, I have to be so intentional with every single day, getting out of bed, making sure I do my routine, making sure I like change my clothes and like do all that regular stuff. So I can only imagine being a 15-year-old without the structure, and I fail some days. Like, I don't get into it some days. And so, and when these kids come online and they're just like, miss, it's not you, online is trash, you know, like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, you know,
right.
what are we gonna do?
Right. And the thing is that, you know, I think we're trying, but like, and I've been saying this from the get-go, right? All of look, the reason I send my kids to school is for the social interaction. That's why I send them, right? Because I could give them everything else, right? I could teach them 3+3. What I can't give them are the interactions that they have with other kids where they learn how to be patient and learn how to be caring and learn how to help someone who's getting picked on and like all of the things that go along with school, which have
Right.
been ripped away from so many of our kids, and not just our kids. It's, we talk about like the socioeconomic difference, right? My daughter's in school 5 days a week. I send her to a private school. I pay money to send her to a private school because my local district is only 2 days a week. Meanwhile, yesterday, I kid you not, I have a video of it. I went to the grocery store, right? Had to be 1,000 people in that grocery store. There had to be 1,000 people. I kid you not. But my kid can't go sit in a classroom with 15 other kids and learn from his teacher. What world am I in?
That's what I'm saying. The schools, there's distance going on, there's masking.
It's not like when you're in the grocery.
It's not like when you're in the grocery store and everybody's up next to you reaching over this and that. And again, you don't hear those workers, you don't see those people. I was at Best Buy last night and the woman was giving her number to somebody so that she could babysit her kids so she could keep her job because the schools are closing.
Right.
Like, so she has to pay extra money, right? And she makes less than me, I'm sure.
Right. And how about or look at it the other way, or on top of that, where you got kids that are home, at least she has a job. How about the kids now whose parents who own a restaurant, who have literally lost everything, who are now having to teach their kid and, oh, by the way, find a job at the same
Right.
time. Like, what about those people?
Yeah, and I mean, I see the videos of the restaurant owners, that stuff. It makes me
It
mad.
breaks
It
my
hits,
heart, man.
it really does. And then of course I'm the one who has no empathy because I want to kill grandmas or something. I'm
Right.
like, no, you're the one with the empathy deficit, not
It's
me.
hard, man. It's hard to have the viewpoint that you have and the viewpoint that I have. And the thing is that I don't have it on Twitter because I don't like characters. I don't like having a limit and how I can explain myself. That's why I like my podcast
Right.
because I can like say very clearly, like, and I want to make this point very clearly. As a teacher, right? It's not up to most teachers. Like, it's not like the teachers
Right.
have a choice. I think there are some vocal ones on social media that are perpetuating this, no question. I think that's
Yeah.
real. But I also think, I really do believe this, that there are an equal amount to more who feel the way you and I do. I get messages from people all the time who are like, I want to be in school. This isn't me. I'm for that. Or a lot of teachers who are like, I've been back since. You go to certain states, they've been back since August, and they're proud to be back. And I
Right.
want to say that, like, it's not the individual people working in the system that, like I said about my son's teacher, two things can be true at the same time, right? I can think he's a really great teacher, and I do, and there's no way he's working harder this year than he ever has in
Of
his life. It's
course.
not
Yeah.
possible.
So no, I agree. I mean, I wish that more teachers would speak out
Me
individually
too.
because but you're totally right. It's about the unions and it's about politics. I did a video where I covered this and you can see it's not being driven by the data. Districts opened up based on their political leanings. So if you were more red, you were more likely to open. If you're more blue and or had stronger unions, you are more likely to stay closed. And there's probably, you're right, just as many people who want to open in those unions
No
as
question.
are hiding behind the unions and don't want to open.
No question that there are, but you have to be very careful with what you say because that's much of the teaching industry, right? Is that so? You have to. People you're nervous, right? I do it
Yeah.
myself, right? I often look at it and I'm like, and I think to myself, my goal in my life has always been to do what's best for kids.
Right.
Period. Like, that's the goal. Like, you have to, and there's hard decisions sometimes that have to be made within that on a daily basis as a teacher, right? All the time it happens. And I think now is that more than ever. And I think when you look at, I'd be a hypocrite to say otherwise, right? I send my daughter to 5-day, my son goes to 2-day, and I've been screaming on my show back in April. I would
Yeah.
have been first in line if school was open,
Yep.
but it wasn't. So it wasn't up to all of us. Unfortunately, I don't get to make those calls.
I mean, I think that this is a great time to just talk more about funding and how the system works. And I think a lot of people and parents especially are coming to realize that they need to be more vocal. They need to get more involved. I think that this is reinvigorating and bringing new angles to school choice. I think that it's inspiring a lot more people to be like you. I mean, you're independent. Like, you don't have a boss, right?
I'm independent, but what that means is that everybody's my boss, right? And so that's my worry is
Okay.
the truth is, right? I'm like you, right? My life is better now virtually in the purest sense, right? If I wanted to be totally selfish about this, my life is better. I'm doing staff development now over the computer. I'm not traveling, right? I'm picking my son up at 3:00 at school and I'm not on an airplane getting home at 11:30 at night, right? Like, my life has changed for the better because of this. And so for me personally, it's cool. I get to be in this chair in my basement, right? Doing my job. It's a fascinating thing. And I think it will always be there. But when I look at and I want to be clear, and I've said this multiple times, I'm not talking about my personal children. Like, when I talk about this, my kids are fine. Like, they have 2 parents that are home. Both of us are educators. Neither one of us are scrounging for money, right? Like, we're in a, knock on wood, right, a really good situation. But those weren't the kids I taught, right? Like, I taught kids who came from broken homes. I taught kids where if you would have looked at me and said, make that kid stay home. It's safer. I'd be like, what? That kid's home is not safe. Like, let me tell you about that kid's home. Pretending that that kid's home is safe is the ultimate privilege, right? It's you
Yeah.
saying that is the ultimate privilege of everything that's wrong with this. His home is a disaster, and so that was the where I went with it right away. And I was like, and I wasn't against it. I'm like, okay, like everybody else, what is the sacrifice for? But now everything's open. Like the
Right.
grocery stores are open, Home Depot's open, CVS is open, the airport's open, the hospital's open, everything's open. But my kid can't go to school when every bit of data shows that they should. But the problem is, when I say that, there's a lot of districts that this is what they are, and it's not. They're up to them, right? They're saying it to me. They're like, we don't have a say in this, right? Somebody above us is making this call. And I feel for those people. But at the same time, I'm like, well, those are people that are hiring me. These are people that are hiring me. I have to be careful with what I say to everyone. But over the last few weeks, I've not worried about it as much, because I just can't worry about it anymore. It's enough.
Right.
I'm to the point where I'm like, it's enough already. Like there's a vaccine around the corner. If you're in that category who's high at risk, take care of yourself. And I mean that sincerely. Like, I'm not
Right.
saying this virus isn't real. I believe it is real. It's 100% real. It's harming people. And be careful, be diligent. But kids got to go to school. Like, that's the foundation.
Right, and especially because they're the ones who are really least affected by this, right? And so we're totally inverting like what needs to be done here. Like, let's protect the old, let's protect the vulnerable, including teachers.
No doubt.
And let's make sure we can accommodate them. Let's make sure we can get them whatever help they need. I think, and that's my other big thing too about this, is just the messaging. Right? Like, it's all about like, stay in your home. We got to stay away. Like, where's the advice to like take vitamin D? Where's the advice to like go get some exercise? Because when we're talking about comorbidities being one of the big issues, that's heart disease, that's diabetes type 2, that's a lot of these things that are highly influenced by lifestyle. So I want to talk about that. And to me, if my biggest problem is we're just not having a fully honest conversation. We want to have half the conversation, and then we want to just yell and scream and tell people they're bad if they want to bring up the other half of the conversation.
Yeah. Well, they got to be in school, and everything else has to adjust around it. And that's my thing is I'm 100% in with whatever precautions you want to do, where they're doing them right at my daughter's school. I mean, and there's some of them I don't like, but I look, there's got to be compromise, right? And
Right.
so, my daughter sits at her desk, right? She's got plexiglass between her and her classmates. Okay. Like, you want to do all that, but she's at school. And for me, and she comes home every day and she still loves it. Like, she's very happy and she's
But
smiling and she's
all
getting
the
all those experiences.
all this stuff about masks and all these things ruining the experience of school is total, like, a fallacy, complete fallacy. It's all about the vibes you bring to the space. If you're sitting there and you're projecting that smile that's behind your mask, if you're getting the kids up to do movement breaks, if you're still finding ways to connect with people, because that's what I was doing a lot of the in like collaboration. So the computers are good for collaboration. It's really hard to do when you're just like always at a distance. But if you have these intermittent kind of like meetups, and then you can collaborate through the computer, it's amazing the work that the kids can get done. So being in school, whether you're with the mask, without the mask, with the mitigation, without the mitigation, it is a magical experience. And that's also what I'm kind of worried about, is like too much of this online persisting even into the future, just because we can. So I think for some people it's good. I think I have a couple of kids who they really struggled with like the more social aspects of school. And they're like, I love this. Like, I don't have to worry about what I wear. I don't have to worry about those kids whispering about me in the back. I can just do my school thing and I play video games with my friends. But that's the absolute exception.
I agree. So I think though that what's good of this is that I think virtual will be here forever. I do not think it will ever go away. I think this will be a choice, and it should be a choice. I
Right.
think I think it should be an option. I think it will be going forward. I think teachers will also continue to get better at it. I know for my career, it will now always be part of my consulting. There's ways that I'm going to go to in person, but then I have follow up where I can do it
Right.
like this and for less money and be with teachers from different parts of the world that I was never able to get to before. There's like a whole new way of thinking. And I think it's good. I've talked many times on here about how my son has thrived under this. So my
Mhm.
daughter was a disaster. She's a lot like me, bounces off the walls, can't be home, always doing a million things. My son's a lot more like my wife. My wife's an artist. She's super calm. Like she likes to be alone. That's him. And he's really cool with the 2 days a week in school, and he loves being home the other three. And I think that that's good. Like, I want to be clear. Like, I'm not this for me. One of the things that's critical for people to understand is it's not a one size fits all. But for
100.
me, it's
Yeah.
when you're denying kids the option to show up in the building, that's where I get involved. And I start to say, we have to call time out, because there are a lot of kids where that is no question the best place for them.
Exactly.
No one
Yeah.
would have ever argued this a year ago. Like, I can't even believe I'm making this argument sometimes.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, and I think it really does just go to kind of like the polarized nature of where we are as a country. It's, if you, like you said, two things can be true at once.
Correct.
But it seems like that is something that a lot of us haven't been able to grasp, especially at this moment in time.
It's never was political for me. Like, I
Right.
promise you, when I tell you, it never has been, it never was. I'm not a political person. I don't care about politics really that much. I actually don't really think it matters that much who the president is in America. I think
Well, it shouldn't for education.
but even
That's
in
for sure.
general, I just feel like if you work hard and you give your best effort and you do good, it's they don't the whole point of the country was one person doesn't have that much power in the world.
Right.
So, like, that's the goal. And so for me, it's always been about individual, about accountability and
Mhm.
looking, but the one group of people who don't get a say are the kids, right? And
Of
I've
course.
said this multiple times. What they went to school March 13th, and overnight we took away their schools, we took away their teachers, we took away their grandparents, we took away their friends, we took away their playgrounds, we took away their shows, we took away their sports, we took away their proms, we took away their graduations. We didn't even hesitate, and they got no say in it, right? And so when you do that, don't try to pretend like that doesn't have an impact on the person you're doing it to. It has a tremendous impact on the, and you have to weigh that. What is the what is the other side of doing that? And I just think it's a very dangerous thing. And I think we'll see what happens. I think it's creating a huge gap. The gap is dividing more, right? The
Yeah.
between the haves and the have nots in the country. Because look, you look at the upper middle class, my kids are still doing their stuff, right? Instead of going to gymnastics, the gymnastics teacher came here and taught my daughter in the basement and stayed
Right.
apart and did one-on-one. My kids went to private golf lessons. Like, so there's the gap is widening when you don't have that for a lot of kids.
I mean, maybe it's just my nature. I am overall more optimistic than pessimistic. Like I do think that there's going to be huge impacts. I think it's not about what they are. I think we already know based on kind of like the downward trend in our education. It's about, okay, what's the compounding impact this is going to put on top of that? But overall, again, just seeing more people say we need choice, seeing more teachers recognize their power to put together an online school or to put together a podcast. Like, I feel like teacher podcasts are flourishing right now. So I do think that there's going to be a surge of imagination and innovation in education led by educators, not because of some top down state level union, whatever the federal government wants to do. It's because teachers are going to go off on their own, do their own thing, and render all that other stuff irrelevant.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting thought.
One can be optimistic.
Yeah, no, and I think we should be. And I think, look, I want to be clear. Like, I think there's a lot of really great things going on right now. I mean,
Right.
I'm not, I believe teachers are trying. I do.
Yeah.
Like, I believe they're trying. I believe a lot of them are working hard. I believe people are again learning new things. All of those things can be true. And at the same exact time, right, it doesn't make sense to me that they can play high school football in one state, but they can't in another. It just, I don't understand it. Like I look at it and I'm like, it just, what, how does that make sense? And, but what, it's not up to me. It hasn't been up to me, unfortunately. I wish it was. Maybe I
No.
don't though. I don't know if I wish it was at this point.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You might be wishing a lot, but I think what you're doing, what we're doing, speaking out is important, and having a nuanced conversation and reminding people that it's not, this or that. We can do
Right.
both. We can recognize the great contributions of teachers and also question, why some aren't so enthusiastic about getting back into the building, what the incentives are. So
Right.
I think
How
that's
does
most
it benefit you to not be there? Right.
right.
Yeah,
And
and I think it does that in certain ways. Look, there's some things in education. I remember reading a study a while ago about relationships, and it was something like I don't have the exact number, so don't quote
mhm,
me on this, but it was in this ballpark. It was something like they surveyed all these teachers, and like 90 something percent of the teachers that they surveyed said that they had really good relationships with their students. And then they asked those same students if they had relationships with the teachers, and the number was like 40%. So there was this like insane divide between what they believed and what the students believed. And I think sometimes that's the case.
that's that really, yeah. And that just goes back to who are we listening to when we're forming our programs and our policy. And it's funny because teachers always say, oh, well, we don't have a voice, we don't have a voice, but we know who really doesn't have a voice is the students. And that's who I'm fighting for. That's why I do what I do. And I will always do it for the students, not because it's popular, not because, because there's always something popular in education. There's always the next fad.
Mm-hmm.
There's always, and to me, it's those things are just about making money. Education's a business, and we forget the basics. Like, I worked at a tutoring center, and we would take kids from being like pretty much non-readers, and based on where they were, and we could move them up so much, and all we used were letter cards,
Right.
books, like write pencil and paper.
Right.
So just really just getting back to the basics. The tech is
Basics.
nice, and I don't want to get rid of it. I'm not anti-tech, but I just think sometimes we forget what it's all about.
It's like the gym, right? Like what the pandemic has taught me, that the gym is just a myth. And I don't mean that rudely, but like, I can work out in like a little square of my house and get with body weight and get the same exact workout, right? And so you can buy the fancy equipment, right, which it exists, or you can just do it like they've done it for probably thousands of years, and you're going to kind of
Figure
get
it
the same
out.
result. Figure it out. Figure it out. How'd you come up with the class disruption theme?
So, well, it's twofold. It's class disruption is like that kid, right, who's always making a disruption, and you
That
just
one
like,
kid.
yeah, get them out. Yeah, exactly. Very much in that kind of thing. And it's like, I had, a lot of friends. I remember in high school, they would just like get kicked out. They just security come and get them. And for me, like, I could sit there and take the notes, on the overhead projector, and I could do the school thing. But it's not what I liked to do. And I was like the kid who would like get good grades and stuff, but I was also like the kid who would ask that question that you didn't want asked. Or I would make the funny, inappropriate comments, or I would just like keep going and going with like the debate when they say it's over or something. Um, so that was the kind of trouble I was in, but I always felt it was a shame because I would hang out with a lot of those kids outside of school, and I'm like, you're not stupid. Like, you can be kind of like, a jerk in class, but like, why don't we just take the extra second to figure out how to get you into the conversation? Because what you're saying is so incredible, but we never get to experience that. So there's that aspect of it. But then there's like the flip side, the teacher side. And how I always, again, going back to like, there's a fad, or there's like this new thing you have to go along with, or, you might not be allowed to say certain things because they're not politically popular right now or something. And I just don't feel like that. As a teacher, I want to speak out. I don't want to feel held back. Like when you're in the in the staff meeting and everybody's saying something and you're like, well, I don't really agree with that. Like, I don't want to be scared to not speak up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. No doubt. It's hard though to do. It's hard. Like I've made my whole career by that, by the way. Like I have made my whole career by looking at people and saying the uncomfortable thing, right?
Mhm.
Which is also discomfort's the appetizer for
Mhm.
growth, right? Like we don't grow without feeling discomfort first. And and I mean, I walk in there's a thing I say in my seminar where I say the worst phrase in the history of the world in school is when teachers complain that they don't feel supported. Like you don't feel supported. Does anyone care? Like get a puppy. Like you don't get it. Get like make some friends. Like why are you looking at your boss to support you? Like where in the world in any other profession is the boss there to support their worker? The boss is there for one reason, and that's to make you better. They have no other responsibility but to make you great at your job. That's their goal, right? That's it. Nothing else, And like this notion that we're supposed to, or my other favorite one is that teachers are underpaid. That's one of the great farces of
Mhm.
all time.
Yes, me
Teachers
too.
aren't underpaid. Now let's be clear about this, okay? It looks maybe like that during their career, but look at retirement, right? What other my mother's a 37-year educator. She's been retired now for 15 years. She gets paid. And by the way, she deserves it. I'm not in any way saying she doesn't deserve this. She does, right? She gets over $45,000 a year handed her to her from the state of New York for the rest of her life. She's collected over $500,000 in retirement. Do not tell me that woman is underpaid, right? Now, people are like, oh, you're a consultant. You must make all this money. I'm like, yeah, but I pay my own health insurance. I have to save for my own retirement. Nobody's going to give me a nickel in
Right.
retirement anymore, right? So do I make more in I call it like the life? Yes. But in the afterlife, teaching rewards longevity, right? Teaching
Mhm.
rewards you staying in it for a long time because, and it's not just true with pay, it's true with your with kids, right? You
Mhm.
sometimes you don't have you don't know the impact you had on a kid until 10 years later, right? Where they come
Right.
back and they're like, hey, I had you 10 years ago and I remember you, and you're like, oh, I kind of remember you and I kind of don't, right? But you have to stay in it long enough to reap the rewards. But this notion that now, if you work in a private school and you don't get that retirement, yes, then I say yes, then you're definitely underpaid. But regular school teachers, come on, and you have a stable job. Like once you get in a lot of our states, you have a stable job where during bad times in the economy, you haven't had to worry about your job right now. You haven't had to worry about your health insurance right now. You
Yep.
haven't had to worry about your pension right now. And there's a lot of people who have. So this notion that we're so underpaid, like chill. Everyone's got to chill.
I'm with you on both of those points. And I
I'm
think
right.
for me, I've been struggling with this a lot lately is how do I both inspire people, right? But also like not do this like soft, fluffy stuff that's just like really it's what pads the system and keeps it going the way it is. So I'm trying to figure that out, how I can both, kind of like be abrasive, be aggressive, like go after new, make people uncomfortable, but like in a way that's like inspiring.
Right. Right. Well, the way to do that, by the way, is to have your own personal story. Right. And I talk
Mhm.
about mine in my seminar. I talk about being in addiction recovery. I talk
Okay.
about being a self-contained special ed kid myself and how it felt when people would say, why do you go to that class? And are you guys retarded or something? Like, and
Mhm.
like saying to a teacher, like, why couldn't you handle me in your class? Right. But I always felt as a teacher that as a self-contained teacher that I was on an island in the school. I felt like if I agreed with everyone else, I was doing something wrong a lot of the time because there were a lot of people who my kids were a pain in the ass to them.
Right.
Special ed kids in general, right? We don't provide a lot of glory for a school district, right? We cost a lot of money, but we
Mhm.
don't provide a lot of glory. So we're kind of like the afterthought of the district a lot of the time in general. I don't mean by the special ed people, it's what we do, right? But in general, in a school,
Right.
a lot of times that's how it comes across.
No, yeah, and even right now that you can see that all the data is coming out, and I know this is also something that we're really addressing at my school and ramping up our focus on is our special education and our L students. Like imagine not speaking English or being proficient at speaking English, and then being in front of a screen all day where people are basically speaking English to you. Because if you were in a setting, you would have somebody in the classroom. You can more actively, again, pair people up so they can work together. You can have a push in, you can have a pull out. It's right now, our teacher who usually does that is just so overburdened, overwhelmed. It's impossible for her to be 3 places at once. So whereas when we're in the building, all those things, all of those different structures to get her where she needs to be, to get the kid support, are just so much more streamlined. Like those are a lot of the kids who were coming in. We had our L students, we had our kids who really needed the extra support. We had the kids who just like needed the structure, like they could do the work, but they just like had to get up and actually like get going. So yeah, just bringing it back around to that in-person schooling we were talking about, like those kids are, again, once again, they are an afterthought.
Right. I'm with you. Listen, I could go on this all day. Any last bit of information that you want to leave people with?
Just don't be a good teacher, cause disruption, not just for disruption's sake, but because it's what's right for the kids. And if you ever need some inspiration or motivation, come check me out on social media at Class Disruption. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I got YouTube videos where we get real into detail, like you said, because there's only so much you could capture on social media. I make a lot of like in-depth videos. I source them all. So
you're good. Yeah, you do it. You do a nice job. You do a nice job with your social media. And, YouTube's a place that I need to get more on. I need to start doing some more stuff on there.
Maybe you should come on.
I would love to come out. Maybe we should do a show. We should do like a YouTube live show or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
That'd be cool.
I would love it. Yeah.
Let's talk about it. All right. Stephanie Edmonds is her name, everybody, at Class Disruption. You can find her. Listen, it was a pleasure. This was a good one. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, don't forget to rate. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to download. Don't forget to check out Stephanie. Check me out. Don't forget to comment. Tell us how you like it. I will be back with you same time next week. Until then, I say peace. I'm out of here.
Peace.
Peace. Hey, that was great. Hold on, let me pause this.